people love to feel connected. People love to feel seen. People love to feel taken care of. And if you're providing for your people, like that's a top priority, is like creating really good content that people can't ignore. You want to have an audience first. So you're starting off as a content creator and a community manager, if you will. And then you are becoming a really good coach. And then you're becoming a CEO. Your business can only grow to the degree to which you are growing, evolving, expanding. We underestimate how much we play a role because we are the foundation of our business. And a lot of people overlook that. Doing more or working more hours doesn't equal more growth, because we're leading a business and scaling a business is not linear, it's exponential.
Hello and welcome to Curious Ones podcast by Yandara. I'm Yael Ginzburg, the host of the podcast, a yoga and meditation teacher and philosophy lover. Each week you will hear eye-opening interviews with the different teachers of the Yandara Yoga Institute, located in beautiful Baja, Mexico, along with other teachers that pass through here. This life-changing knowledge, shared through authentic, heartfelt communication, will help you live a happier, more fulfilled, and connected life. Let's dive in. Hello, welcome back to Curious Ones podcast by Yandara. I'm Yael Ginzburg. Today I have such a beautiful guest with me. She is an entrepreneur, content creator, host of Unfuck Your Life podcast. She supports highly ambitious women in feminine leadership, working on mindset, healing, and professional success. Laura Herde, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited for this conversation today.
Me too. So, seeing that Laura has such experience with feminine and professional business development with such a beautiful holistic perspective, I thought it would be the perfect connection to the world of yoga and spirituality, seeing as every one of us, like yoga teacher, coaches, a holistic practitioner, we start off with a passion in a certain area and then we automatically just become a business owner and entrepreneur, and we have to learn so much about releasing blocks and mindset and just the tools that help us to create a professional business that allows us to do that thing that we love. So I'm so happy to dive into that with you
I'm
today.
super excited. That's amazing. I'm so pumped.
So, just with the things that I said so far, how does that connect to really your real life experience with your coachees?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack. So, first and foremost, for everyone who doesn't quite know a lot about my journey, like my personal journey, which basically ties into my professional journey in a lot of different ways. But fast forward, when I was around 20 years old, maybe 19, I was probably 19. So, like, literally 9 years ago, I started studying and I started building a personal brand on the side. And back in the days, like, of course, like Instagram existed and like people were already posting on that platform. Blogs existed also at the time, and even podcasts. But it was still like when someone was like having like a somewhat niche topic that they spoke about, which for me back in the days was lifestyle, like health, wellness, holistic well-being, veganism, travel. um, I was speaking a lot into mental health because I myself had overcome depression in the past. Like, I was talking about all of these topics that were really close to my heart. And back in the days, it was quite not easy, but like probably easier than these days to stand out. And so I started posting on Instagram back in those days, and I started creating a personal brand for myself through that. And I didn't really think much of it. Like, I was not even planning to become a business owner at that time. I just wanted to share what I was passionate about, because a huge value of my life, besides freedom, is also authenticity and self expression. And so I was like, this is like a fun little almost hobby on the side. And so I started pursuing that while studying at university. I was studying media communication and journalism, which in a way is related to what I'm doing, but also not really. Like, I can't really say I'm utilizing any of my knowledge that I acquired during those 3 years these days as an entrepreneur, but it's fine because it gave me a lot of time to build my brand on the side and to figure out who I am and what I want to do after my studies. And during my studies, I realized like what I'm studying is not what I'm passionate about, and what I'm doing on the side is actually something I'm very much passionate about. So, after university, I decided to take a year for myself to travel, to see the world, to explore myself, to develop myself. And during that time, my little personal brand grew into a business because people started reaching out asking for mentorship. And back in the days, I was aware that coaching was a profession. For everyone listening, like, I'm a holistic mindset and success coach, leadership mentor. I do different things in my business. But back then, it was very much focused on mental health, mindset work, manifestation, confidence, all of that. And yeah, like, through building a brand and building a reputation and establishing myself without even intentionally trying, to be honest, as an authority, people started asking for guidance. And so I was like, sure, I can do that. And so I took on a couple one-on-one clients at that time, and it worked out so well, and they got incredible results. And I shared those results, and then more inquiries came in, and it was very beautiful and organic. And it was not even, again, intentionally planned. Like, I was never like, oh, I'm gonna become like a coach, like, it was never that. But it happened to work out so beautifully. And so I was traveling. I was like 22, 23 years old. I was yeah, coaching my clients online, and like, it was super fulfilling. And so that over the years just grew into something. And I started adding more programs and different offers and options to work with me. I created a certification academy for women entrepreneurs who are wanting to become coaches, so like aspiring and newbie coaches who want to gain the skill set and the knowledge and the expertise and embodiment and confidence that you need as a coach to make a living off of that. And so, yeah, it's been a whole journey, but essentially, it was more than anything a journey of me living on my purpose and following my passion and developing as a human, and thus like developing my message and like the kind of content I'm sharing and what I'm teaching on and coaching on and mentoring on. Because these days it's more focused on, as you said, feminine leadership and masculine and feminine energetics and business and life and dating. And obviously, like, mindset work and healing work is like a huge important aspect and part of that, but it's no longer all I'm doing. Like, I'm going beyond that as I've evolved. So like, that's long story short how I got into entrepreneurship, I guess, and how my personal journey also kind of tied into that a little bit.
Beautiful. Sounds like such a beautiful journey and so organic and so authentic.
Yeah,
I
it's very
I
organic.
yeah, I feel like in a way I want to say you're lucky to have been going down this road, but I also know that it's an intentional choice every step of the way.
Yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, you're creating your own luck, right? Like, it's preparation meeting opportunity. And so I had prepared something, like I had a brand, and then I got the opportunity to coach people, and I said, yeah. So like, it's always a co-creation for sure, but it's good to make those decisions that can create luck further down the line, which is basically you following your intuition for me. Like, for me, you're creating your own luck by listening to your own inner guidance and your intuition. And mine was like, Laura, we're posting on Instagram. We're putting ourselves out there. Like, let's go. So, yeah, no regrets. That's for sure.
Beautiful. So let's focus in on that because I really find that that's a place of maybe difficulty for many entrepreneurs. As I said, all of us in the healing modality world have now become business owners, entrepreneurs, and marketers. So, like,
Yeah.
you have to really know how to communicate to the world what it is you do in order to connect with the people who want to work with you. And I would love to hear a little bit about your journey, and also how do you coach your clients today to get past that hurdle of really allowing ourselves to be seen and heard, and finding and cultivating our authentic voice. As you mentioned, it's something that you're still developing, your authentic voice, and your work is still developing. I would love to hear about that.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my goodness. I had no idea what I was signing up for, honestly, when I started this business basically by saying yes to one-on-one mentorship inquiries back in the day. So, like, literally, we're talking 20, late 2018, I think that's when it started, and like early 2019. Like, that's when I started coaching people randomly one-on-one on request on demand. And that was weird because I was like, okay, I need to write an invoice. And it was just like this strange thing of like, sure, I'm doing what I love and what I'm pretty good at, and I'm charging for it, and that's dope. But like, over time, I obviously noticed how that was turning into like an actual business, right? And that was interesting. And I don't come from a family where anyone is entrepreneurial whatsoever. Like, my parents both worked a 9 to 5 job. Like, I was not raised with an entrepreneurial mindset at all. But funny enough, as a kid, I always had it in a way. Like, it's something I actually never shared on any podcast, but I feel like as a kid, I was always very entrepreneurial in my way of thinking. And I was always thinking, without knowing what it meant, about return on investment and like what's the smart thing to do if I want to get to place X, Y, and Z, or reach goal X, Y, and Z. And so like I knew how to think strategically. I also want to add, like, back in those days, I was very much in my masculine energy, which is a good thing. And I'll get more into what that means and like how that plays out in business. But also, there is different nuances to being in your masculine or being in your feminine energy when it comes to love, but also especially like now talking business, of course. It's like there's wounded masculine energy and there's healthy integrated masculine energy, and the same goes for feminine energy in business. And so I was in my wounded masculine, meaning I was like not really trusting. I was like really getting to a point where I was trying to control things and push and overwork and like work so damn hard, because I was starting to take it seriously, because I realized how much fun it was and that that was something I wanted to do full time. And with that, obviously, came my own expectation and internal pressure that I created, because I was like, no way I'm going to do 9 to 5. Like, if this is something I can do and I can get paid for it, then let's fucking go. And that's obviously a great mindset to have, but also at the same time, again, it can swing to one side where you're just completely pressuring yourself and pushing and forcing and burning yourself out. And so that's what happened in 2019, essentially. Like, I burned out because I was working so damn hard, because I wanted to make it happen so badly, that I didn't really take rest, and I didn't really like listen to my body, and like I was working against my body pretty much. So, and like that was obviously not great, but it did allow me to build a solid foundation. And obviously now, like, I know what I could have done differently, so now I can teach my clients how to like not burn out while still building a solid foundation for their business. um but back then didn't have a mentor, so I didn't really know better. So I went down that route of burnout and like being overly my masculine, and that's serving me, but also obviously not serving me on like a mind body level. And that allowed me to establish a strong foundation for my business. And it's really important to note that as entrepreneurs, like, there is so many different ways you can succeed. There's not just one way. So I'm never going to promote like, oh, there's my way or the highway. Like, there's only my way of doing things. I think with every business that exists is unique, because every entrepreneur behind it is unique and every CEO is unique. And I back then had no idea how to be a CEO. Like, I'm going to be honest here. Like, I was like, okay, I'm good at coaching people, but being a coach doesn't equal meaning being a good CEO, if that makes sense. So when I started growing my business and getting more clients, and then, as I mentioned, like introducing more offers, like meaning group containers and like different settings to work with me, I was getting overwhelmed quite easily. And then eventually I started outsourcing. So I brought on interns who supported me with customer support and admin, and eventually I hired a bookkeeper, and like all those things that made my life so much easier. But ultimately, I didn't know how to be a leader. Like, I didn't know how to be an actual CEO, and I knew a little bit about thinking strategically and making business decisions, just from what I've been teaching myself through books and through other free resources. But it was very much so confusing. And I was like, oh, like, how am I actually doing this? Because I'm a good coach, I'm good at what I do, but I am not necessarily, I didn't see myself even for a really long time as a business owner. Like when someone was like, oh, you're a CEO, then you have your own business. I was like, I'm not a, oh yeah, I am a CEO.
I guess so,
I
yeah.
guess I am. Yes. But I didn't see myself like that at all. Like my self-image, my identity hasn't even caught up on how my business was developing, which in late 2019, even though I was burning out, my business was growing super, super fast. And especially in early 2020, then in mid 2020, like it just blew out of the water. And I was like, I wasn't even ready for that. Like, the revenue, like my yearly revenue was like 10xing or even more than that, and I was like, whoa, what is happening? Like I didn't really even, I couldn't keep up, basically, and that was not sustainable. And this is why these days I'm teaching my clients, especially inside of my feminine business program, which is self-led, and also my mastermind, which is life-led, sustainable scaling, because I don't want anyone to feel like you're running down a hill and like your legs are just going faster and faster and like you're about to tremble and stumble and like fall, right? Because that's how I felt. Like there was so much momentum and speed that it was basically too much. Like my business and the back end of my business was not ready for this fast growth. And this is why now I'm like so passionate about sustainable scaling, because it is, you're pacing yourself, and it doesn't mean you can't grow your business exponentially, but it means you have the foundations in place and the back end in place that allows you to grow faster and still be fine. And it's not a whole fucking mess, because my business backend was a whole fucking mess. And my team organization and management was a whole fucking hot mess. And I don't want that for anyone. So again, coming back to that, so I was a great coach. I wasn't so much a great leader, manager of my team, business owner. I was a good content creator because with my personal brand, I kind of started out as a content creator slash influencer, as you call it these days. So I knew how to create content. I knew how to do copywriting in a way, at least. I mean, obviously, I had to develop my skills a lot, and I did. But yeah, you got to be, and I'm teaching this actually instead of my certification academy for aspiring and newbie coaches. There is so many different roles that you got to embody as a coach. You're a coach, yes, and ideally you're highly skilled and you're embodied and you have expertise and you have experience and you're confident and you're having this authority energy. But then besides that, you got to be a good copywriter, you got to be a good content creator, you got to be a good community manager of your, like, let's say you're using Instagram, like you're managing a community, right? Like you're entertaining people, so you're an entertainer, but you're also a
Totally.
mentor, you're a guide, you're a healer, you're a team manager. If you eventually start outsourcing and delegating and having a team, then you're also like a manager of your team. Like if you don't have a bookkeeper, you're also your own bookkeeper. Like you're being all of it, girl. Like you're wearing all the hats, and you better be good at it. And
Yeah.
so that was super confusing. I was like, what on earth? I feel like I'm good at content creation, but there's definitely ways to step it up. I feel like I'm good at writing, but I'm definitely not a copywriter. So I had to learn a lot about copywriting. I had to learn a lot about content creation, which also, as we all know, Instagram is developing, and like there's always new formats, and like there's always new like hooks and new ways to catch people's attention. Like obviously there's more and more creators on this platform, so you want to stand out. Like it's all those things where I was just like, holy frick, like I was not prepared for that. Nobody prepared me for that. And that's why instead of my academy, for instance, I'm teaching my students not just how to be excellent, outstanding coaches who are highly skilled and embodied in their work, but also how to do all the other things, how to wear all the other hats, because you got to wear those hats if you want to have a functioning business. And of course, eventually you can outsource like a community manager. So you have like someone in your Instagram DMs, or, you know, someone for that, or like a copywriter, you can hire that, like a web designer who does your website, like a VA, or like a, you know, like a bookkeeper. Like you can eventually hire and outsource, but until you get to that point, you got to at least to some degree do it yourself, no? So for me that was confusing. And one of the things that I wish I did sooner was like outsource in smaller ways. Like you don't have to hire someone full time. Like you can have someone for 3 hours a week who just helps you out a tiny little bit, so you can stay in your zone of joy and genius, which is probably whatever healing work you're doing. um and possibly also content creation, because obviously like you're the face of the brand, so you're the content creator, so you want to be good at those two things, and everything else you can eventually outsource. And also like, yeah, CEO, like you want to be good at thinking like a CEO and acting and leading like a CEO, and ideally like a feminine CEO, not like a masculine CEO, because when most people talk about CEOs or leadership or anything like that, when we hear those words, we automatically think about like older men in suits, right? Like at least for me, that was always my, when I was like CEO and like leadership, it was like this very like masculine world, and like
It's not a
yeah, it was
girl
like
sitting
men,
in Bali
men in suits.
with her tea and her dogs. It's not what we imagine.
That's totally not what we imagine. And especially someone who, you know, like swears on their podcast. Like I have my own podcast show and I'm like saying fuck all the freaking time. And that is what a lot of people would consider unprofessional. I think it's actually powerful because it's authentic and it's true. And people these days want to work with people who are true and authentic and honest. But back then I was like, ooh, like I don't see myself as a CEO because I don't even look like a CEO and I don't feel like I act like a CEO, but I was thinking to a certain degree like a CEO, and that gave me an advantage. And so, what you want to learn is how to think and lead like a CEO. It doesn't mean you have to act like this stereotype, but you want to be able to make smart business decisions because someone else is going to do it for you, because that you can't really outsource. I mean, you can
Yeah.
hire someone who's like, you know, but like, we're not talking about that even, like, right? Like, it's like, no, you're the CEO of your own company. You are the visionary. You are the creative director. You are the creator. You're the face of the brand. And you're obviously the one supporting your clients or students or whatever you're doing, right? So for me, that was confusing. I grew into it through trial and error, but that's why over the years I developed like this framework that I'm now teaching inside of my mastermind and inside of my certification academy, because I realized like people need that. Like people don't know. Like I didn't know back then, and I wish someone would have showed me the way. And so it's just about being aware of which things, especially in the beginning, you could outsource, like as I mentioned, bookkeeping or, you know, like some admin stuff. But there's ultimately things that, or like designs, for instance, but like there is certain things that you can't outsource, like your own genius, your own creativity, you being the CEO, you being the one who's delivering. Of course, eventually you can hire like a support coach, which is actually what I did in 2020, because I was so burnt out and overwhelmed that I had to hire someone who would coach my clients in my group containers for me, because I was stepping more into the role of the CEO and marketer that I didn't even have the capacity to actually coach. So I was training my head coach how to coach like me. And it was just crazy. And eventually I realized, well, that's not really what I want, because I don't want to be just the CEO. I want to be the coach. And so I had to like change that again so that I could be the coach. It was just a whole freaking journey. And so there's so many things I wish I knew, but one of them is definitely realizing how much it actually takes to balance wearing all the hats, all whilst balancing being a human being who has a personal life, who has relationships, who has hobbies, who has interests, who's sleeping, who's moving, who's eating, who's all the things. Like, oh my gosh. So yeah, it's been a whole journey. I don't know if that even answered your question, to be honest. But long story short, this is what I wish I knew.
Beautiful. I think there's so much to go into that. And that was the real authentic answer of what it is to become an entrepreneur and a business owner. And I love
Yeah.
that. That has so much value just in what that is. But I really want to go deeper into that. So we were talking, or you were talking about the foundation of a business, thinking like a CEO, thinking like a
Mm.
feminine CEO, and really learning along the way. I would love to hear from you about that. A business owner who's just starting, who's really, going in their zone of genius, but needs or wants to set up that foundation in
Mhm.
order for when they do experience that growth, that it happens in a sustainable way, as you say it. So thinking about building the foundation, thinking like a CEO, a feminine CEO, and learning things along the way. How do you coach people to do that?
So the first thing we want to look at is there any masculine structure in your business so you can be in your feminine as a CEO? Because without structure,
Mm.
without organization, without a solid business back end, it's just going to be, as I said, and that was my experience, right? It's just going to be a hot mess. And so what I'm always looking at first with my clients is there any strong foundations in place? Do you have systems? Do you have operational processes that are repeatable, that can be automated? Sorry. I'm German, so sometimes the words are just coming out of my mouth that don't make sense, but that can be automated, right? Like a repeatable frameworks and processes. Do you essentially have a business playbook in place that allows you to eventually, when you experience that growth in your business, you can start hiring and delegating in a very effortless way? And so what I mean by business playbook is essentially you're having a document or a collection of videos of you explaining step-by-step processes, because everything you do in your business on the back end has a process to it, whether it's writing an invoice, whether it is creating a piece of content, whether it is replying to customer inquiries, right? Like eventually you can start using templates because a lot of what you will do will repeat itself. Like you'll do it all over and over and over again. And so what I always say is whatever you can template, and template is like a verb here right now, create a template out of it. So, meaning if someone applies for my certification academy, because there's an application form, you can also obviously just like jump in and sign up right away if you know this is for you, but you can also take another step and fill out the application form so you can actually get our honest opinion on whether this is a fit for you or not. And so when you fill that out, you submit it, and then my team will respond within 48 hours usually, and they have a template. They're not starting to write this whole info email on our certification and what's included and like what it does for you. We don't write that from scratch every single time, right? So like that's a template we use. And so what I'm saying is even with like social posts like that you maybe create on Canva, eventually you will want to have it a certain way so it looks a certain way, so you'll start creating templates, like templates that you can use on Canva, where you just need to plug and play the photos, the imagery and the copy. So like you don't have to start from scratch every single time. And so eventually you will have those templates and you'll have those frameworks and processes in place on how you are doing things. And when you're bringing someone new on, you can just show them this is how I'm doing things. And so whether you have it in a Google document where you write down step by step how you're responding to a client inquiry, or how you are sending out newsletters, if you have like an email list, like you're explaining what it looks like in the backend portal, like we're using Kartra, but there is MailChimp, there is Flowdesk, there's so many different ones, right? Active Campaign, whatever. Like you want to have videos of you doing it yourself so that someone else just has to watch those Loom videos. You can also use Vidyard, which is like a similar tool to Loom, but Loom is very popular, so I'm going to say Loom, where you're showing what you're doing and how you're doing it, and people can literally watch those videos and then they know how to do it themselves. And so, like, this is what I mean by business playbook. Like, you want to have those videos and step by step frameworks outlined so that when you bring someone on, they can just watch it, consume it, ask you questions, and they can start supporting you right away. And when I also say business backend, of course, you want to have organizations in terms of like your course backend, like your newsletters, if you're doing that, like again, also like client invoicing and stuff like that. Like, is everything like organized and in one system in one place, or is it like all a hot mess and you're creating it on a whim? So like that's the first thing, because if you want to have time freedom, you have to have automations and processes and systems in place. Otherwise, you're starting from scratch every single time, and you're also not being consistent, for instance, with designs, right? Like if you're starting from scratch, like every design of your, like every post on your social media will look different, and that's like not really professional. So there's just so many small things where you can create templates and just make your life so much easier, save yourself so much time and energy. And again, when you start outsourcing and delegating, people can just pick up what you created and they just repeat it, right? Like, and they don't have to like think necessarily a lot because they're just following the step by step outline that you created for them. And so that's like a huge thing when it comes to starting out. Like, you want to have those kind of foundations in place because they save you energy long term. They allow you to delegate and hire and onboard people into your team way more easily long term. And just for yourself, like you feel like you're organized and your backend is not a hot mess. And so that's the first thing when it comes to like starting, at least to introduce some masculine structure into your business, so that then you have those like this all this time saved from constantly starting from scratch again, that you can then pour into your creations, into your clients, into your containers, into all of that. And that allows you to be more of a feminine leader, because it allows you to look after yourself and to still have time to create and be in your creative energy, because you know the back end of your business is stable and nothing is going to happen. Like, like if you take some days off from work, nothing bad is going to happen, because everything is systematized and organized and in place, rather than everything being a hot mess. So that's what's really changed the game for me, was like systematizing everything and creating templates for everything. Because that ultimately now allows me to like take 2 3 4 weeks off and my business is still up and running. Like, it's not, crumbling, and I don't have to feel stressed about it. So that's been a huge game changer for me, for sure.
Hey, I'm quickly interrupting the episode to extend an invitation. If you are interested in deepening into any of the subjects we talk about on the podcast, we offer many different experiences on our beautiful grounds here in Baja, Mexico. From 9-day modules such as sound healing and yoga nidra, to breath and meditation, as well as 200 or 300 hour yoga teacher trainings, and many different shorter retreats. Check out our website yandara.com to see all the information about the different experiences. Let's get back to the episode.
Wow, so interesting. And I'm thinking of like, how do we even start to do that? I'm thinking of the daily work that we have to do when you speak about the structure and this kind of like more masculine energy, which is what you mean by the structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we
Yeah,
think
the
of
clarity.
exactly, so when we think of the daily actions that we have to do with building that structure in a day, are there rituals that you do? I know you talk about rituals that you can work with. Is there a way that you recommend to structure even just your day-to-day work? What does that
Mm-hmm.
mean to work within the fem or the masculine structure model?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, I used to do things, as I said, on a whim. So like literally, I didn't really have a structure. I just felt like everything was urgent and important. So I basically had no priorities, right? And I was just like constantly in the state of being reactive, like reacting to people demanding something from me, needing something from me. And so I didn't really have my own structures and priorities, because I was constantly, as a CEO, in this reactive mode of this person needs something and then this and I had also no client boundaries. So for instance, what my private clients get is they get WhatsApp support. So they have access to my private WhatsApp number and they can message me there Monday to Friday. But doesn't mean I'm responding 24/7 Monday to Friday, right? So it's like it was also about me starting to introduce boundaries in terms of, yeah, I will respond, but only once a day at a certain time of the day. And so like that was, so like they're hearing from me every single day and I will never skip a day. I will never forget it. But it's not that I'm constantly on my phone, constantly available. No, like at 4 p.m. or 4:30 every day, I'm checking in there with all my private clients for 30 minutes. I'm listening to their voice notes. I'm sending voice notes back. I'm doing some reviews. I'm giving them hands-on guidance and support, but only within that time frame. Like I'm not crazy about it and like messaging back and forth with them all day long, which is actually something I used to do, which was me lacking healthy masculine energy, which is boundaries, right? So like that's just one example. But to answer your question regarding my weekly structure, so like now it's really beautiful, because everything that I'm saying here, take it with a pinch of salt, because I'm still very much in flow. I'm very intuitive. If someone asks me, hey, Laura, like, let's spend a long weekend in Uluwatu together, I'll go, because I have the freedom. I will do that. But generally speaking, I have a weekly schedule that is super nourishing for my feminine, but also very efficient in terms of me getting shit done. So Mondays are CEO days for me. These are the days where I'm starting the week intentionally. I'm creating a schedule for the week ahead. I usually do that on Sundays, where I'm already like planning my social calendar and my workouts and like my personal life errands. And then around that, I'm scheduling meetings and my work and clients and content creation, all the other things I'm doing. So that's usually Sundays. But then on Monday, I review that and I change things around and I see what's in my inbox. If there's anything urgent that needs to be responded to, I'm setting my team's priorities on our master to-do list for my team where I'm like overlooking anything. I'm looking at deadlines, I'm looking at objectives, I'm looking at like what's the status of each project, like what needs to be finished. So like Mondays are really me being in the CEO seat and being very strategic about what's happening this week, what's a priority, what can wait, what can be pushed back. um is there any additional inquiries, like for instance, like uh have I been booked as a speaker for a summit or something like that? Like I'm just like looking at all those kind of things on Mondays, and I'm getting organized and I'm managing my team and I'm responding to my clients and I'm also clearing out my inbox usually, which tends to get quite full very easily. But that's what Mondays are for. I'm not doing that every day, right? Like so Tuesdays are usually private client call days where I'm speaking to private clients. I have usually just a handful of private clients at a time. I used to, when I was starting out, have 15 at some point. Private clients who had one-on-one calls with me every single week. Imagine, like I was in calls so much, and it requires so much energy, right? Like it's a, as healers, as coaches, we're investing a lot of energy into our clients if we're over delivering at least. And so for me, I was constantly depleted and I didn't understand why. And now looking back, I'm like, whoa, like I was drinking so much coffee because I was just so depleted because I didn't understand how much energy it actually takes for an introvert like me, because I seem very extroverted and I have an extroverted side, but deep down on the inside I'm an introvert. I recharge by being by myself. And so I was like, oh, why am I feeling so exhausted and depleted? Well, I'm seeing like sometimes 3-4 clients per day for an 1 hour call. Like of course I'm going to be fucking exhausted, right? So these days I have 3 private clients at a time, which is super nourishing because I have those on Tuesdays and they're getting my everything, because on Tuesdays I really don't do much else. I'll post on my stories, I'll check in with my team, and I'll do some light creative work here and there, but like mostly it's like maintaining like keeping my energy to myself for my clients on those days, and giving them homework feedback and all that stuff. And then Wednesdays are usually when I'm preparing for my podcast, so I'm planning new episodes and I'm recording my own episodes, or I'm hopping on guest episodes. Is today Wednesday? I think today is Wednesday, right?
It is.
Yeah, so today, yeah, so like that's usually my pocket. So that worked super well. Obviously if someone's like, oh, I only have a slot on Thursdays, I will do that as well. But like usually I'm really good at having my boundaries. So this morning I recorded my solo episode for my own podcast. Then I prepared some episodes for June, and now I'm on this podcast. Like it works so well, right? Like it's very streamlined and I'm batching. Like what you can notice here is I'm batching. I'm not constantly going between creative work and then admin work. It's like Mondays are CEO days, very strategic. Tuesdays are for socializing in terms of like client support, client days. And then Wednesdays are for creation for my podcast. Thursdays are for copywriting. So I'm writing newsletters, I'm writing Instagram posts, I'm preparing all of that, I'm preparing reels. So like I'm in creation mode on Thursdays, and then Fridays are for wrapping up loose ends. And then sometimes on the weekends I have my group coaching calls. So like for me, that's such a wholesome weekly flow where I don't constantly use my left and right brain side, because obviously like there is a creative one and there's a more logical one, and it's not a good thing to constantly shift between those during the day. So I'm trying to like keep it a more admin day and like a rational, logical, strategic day where I'm thinking, and then those where I'm just creating and when I'm like downloading and sourcing and expressing, which is more feminine, right? And so I have those days where I'm more my masculine and those days where I'm more my feminine in my business, and that serves me super well. So that's usually my daily flow. And then regarding rituals, what I want to really speak into and remind everyone of, I guess, is like the importance before you're starting to work day to really ensure you're pouring into yourself, especially on client days, or for me Tuesdays, or also Wednesdays where I'm podcasting. That's also usually a lot of energy that goes into that. So for me, those days I'm sleeping in, I'm having slow mornings, I'm having my cacao, I'm journaling, I'm, stretching, moving, dancing. Like I do all those things that I know will get me into my body and fill up my cup before I'm pouring into others. And that's something I used to not prioritize, because I was just like, the more hours I work, the more I'll get done. Like that was my mindset. And now it's like, no, like the more I'm prioritizing my energy and my energy levels and how I'm feeling, the more success I will have, because I'm showing up fully with everything I do. And so that's like a non-negotiable for me in the mornings, especially on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. But I have a morning routine every day that I do commit myself to for at least 90 minutes. Usually it's 2 hours. I know it sounds for a lot of people it's like a luxury, but yeah, that is the luxury that comes with being self-employed, is you get to take your mornings from 7 to 9 because you don't have to commute somewhere, which is great. I do take my mornings from 7 to 9 for myself, and I love that for me. And I think that's super important to like not jump head first into work, which is what I used to do in the beginning stage of my business because everything seemed so urgent and so important, and I didn't have any priorities. Now I'm very clear on my priorities, and I'm very able to delegate and to outsource or to understand something just doesn't even deserve my time. Like, I'm not going to say yes to every single inquiry and request that's coming in just because I have to set priorities because I have to protect my energy, my time. And so understanding that as an entrepreneur, like your energy is your biggest currency and your time is non-refundable. Like when you treat your energy and your time as super precious resources, and also your attention, meaning you're not just like scrolling on your phone all day long. Like you got to be a creator, not a consumer. Just like those small little realizations have really, really helped me to have solid boundaries and still have a life, even though I have a lot of responsibility, a team that relies on me, clients that obviously pay to learn from me, and have a certain level of support depending on what kind of package they book. But and still having a life. And a huge point there has been definitely boundaries and also being super clear on needle movers and priorities, which I used to have such a hard time understanding what is moving the needle, what is a priority, what is not maybe that urgent. Like it is, again, it is you adopting a way of thinking, but as a woman, like in a feminine way. And so that's kind of what I'm doing inside of my mastermind, basically. So yeah, long story
I
short,
love that.
that answers your question.
I know. I love that. That was actually so helpful. You really breaking down what you do on each day and how you kind of have this framework for the day so that you're in a certain mindset and you don't have to constantly go back and forth from
Yeah.
different energies within yourself. I find that
Yeah.
personally super helpful. And I also love that you started off by saying that it's not just about being in the masculine, it's about finding also the nourishing feminine aspects of creation and being. So that was a really helpful answer. Thank you.
You're
And I
welcome.
want to go deeper into that because you were speaking also about priorities, because I find that that is really something that
Yeah.
takes a while to navigate. How does one know where to focus the time? Really, as you said, the things that really move the needle, because I find that in the
Mhm.
beginning, we just spend our time on a bunch of different things, not really realizing which things are actually going to move our business forward and which things are just taking so much of our time and not really
That is true.
contributing. How do you navigate that?
Yeah. So again, in the beginning, I honestly had no idea by myself. So like I was just throwing spaghetti at the wall, like seeing what sticks, and I had no priorities. I was trying to do it all. I said yes to everything. So like something that distinguishes like very successful from like normal business owners is their ability to say no. And a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people are like, oh, like we're glamorizing the saying yes and like taking on opportunities. And whilst that is a good thing, it's also very important to know when to say no. And so I didn't really know that back then. And I'm teaching this inside of my certification academy for aspiring and newbie coaches. And I'm very much so diving into that inside of my feminine business program because it is a skill, like setting priorities and defining needle movers, which again also is very personal. It varies from business to business to business because every business model is different, and so the priorities will be different. Like if you're having more of a passive business model, your priorities will differ from someone who has a very active hands-on business model, right? Like if you're more hands-off and passive, your daily priorities will be completely different from someone who's very hands-on. So that is like, that's why I'm like having a hard time just being like, generally this is how it is, because it is so personal. And this is why I love to offer personalized coaching to my clients, is because it depends on their business, right? And also on their personal preferences and needs. But what I will say is in the very beginning, you always want to focus on community. You always want to focus on connection. You always want to focus on building authority and trust and giving value. Because if you're starting with creating programs, but you have literally no audience to sell to, it's like, like it doesn't really work that way around, to be honest, right? So it's like, why would you not rather build a strong community who's interested in what you're doing, who's fucking engaged, that wants to learn from you, and that literally organically, proactively, like it was the case for me, reaches out to you demanding from you, wanting to learn from you, rather than you speaking to no one, creating a course, and then there's crickets because nobody cares because you've not invested any time into actually building an audience of raving fans, like a community, right? And so for me, connection and community are like first and foremost life values. Like I find so much value as a generator by human design, a 4-6 line. Like I love connection. Like it's just giving me energy. I don't know. But also it's like it's really what's allowed me to build a solid business because people love to feel connected. People love to feel seen. People love to feel taken care of. And if you're providing for your people, like that's a top priority. Is like creating really good content that people can't ignore. Which obviously goes into what we said before, like becoming good at copywriting, becoming good at content creation, becoming good at community management. Like those are things you want to learn. And then you want to learn how to be a CEO. And then you want to learn how to be a really good coach. But you want to have an audience first. So you're starting off as a content creator and a community manager, if you will. And then you are becoming a really good coach, and then you're becoming a CEO. So you're learning how to think and act and lead like a CEO. So it's like it's a step-by-step thing. Not everything is urgent, but like all of them are equally important, I would say. But like if we had to prioritize, it would be good content creator, really good coach, yoga teacher, whatever you're doing, and then being a really good CEO. And obviously it helps to like have like a mentor or like a program where you can learn all of that, because all of that does matter. Like you do need to know about all of this. But it always starts off with you being really really good at demonstrating in your content that you are the authority and the go-to person to go to. You are the expert, and it is valuable to hurdle your credit card at you, like it makes sense to actually buy, to not just consume the free content, because free content is like a little pre-taste, but it doesn't give you the whole fucking experience, obviously. So that is very very important in regards to priorities. But for a business owner like me, for me these days, what's a priority is over delivering for my clients. Like sure, I'm still creating a lot of content, and I think also a lot of valuable content, but eventually you'll see when you're focusing, and I actually spoke to this in my solo episode that I recorded this morning. What makes a business sustainable is when you have repeat customers. Like most of my clients have been with me for 3, 4, 5 years, meaning they've rejoined my world all over and over and over again without me actively selling to them. Like they just had an amazing experience. They took what they got, integrated it, got amazing results, and kept coming back a couple of months later for more. Or they're in a one-on-one container and they just keep extending because they understand that their journey never ends, and they want to keep getting amazing support to keep creating phenomenal outcomes in their lives and businesses. So it becomes sustainable when you don't even have to sell yourself anymore, and your work becomes the marketing itself, and your testimonials become the marketing itself. Like people are selling for you, or your current customers just keep rejoining your world. Like all the money I made this month is from existing clients who jumped into another container or extended their package or booked a top-up session, or like just stuff like that, where I'm like, whoa, like I have not even brought on a new customer and still my business keeps making money. Not even speaking about the recurring revenue that's coming in each month, right? So it's really about like knowing how to do that, because that's what makes your business sustainable long term. And that's also feminine leadership to me, because it's all about you prioritizing over delivering and client results and client satisfaction in your business, rather than having a shitty experience and constantly having to look for new customers because the customers you served in the past are not satisfied and they'll never come back, right? So for me, that's also very much feminine business, is you focusing on connection and results over sales or numbers, right? Like numbers do matter. I'm not going to say numbers don't matter, but I will say it's like it becomes a byproduct of you focusing on being really fucking good at what you do and doubling down on your clients. So like for me, that's a massive priority, not because it keeps my business afloat, but also because it just goes hand in hand with my value of wanting to give people a really fucking great experience when they're showing trust by investing into me. So yeah, that's long story short, I guess. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I really agree. It's the bottom line. If you're good at selling, but then you don't deliver, then it's that there's no point in that. Your client is not going to be happy. Of course, they're not going
Yeah.
to. I mean, it's all about having, first of all, giving the value and having a good product and being good at your craft. But I love that you mentioned that first of all, you have to have a community and people who want to buy from you. And I find that it's hard for, let's say, us in the wellness healing modality community to realize that that is the number one focus. But it was helpful that you said that. When you meet with coaches or in your containers, where do you usually find there is that area that maybe is not the most expected place or not what we would think of immediately, but the area that really creates the highest growth for us, or the biggest jump that you like to focus on with your clients?
Yeah, honestly, this is funny that you're asking this because I was thinking about that a couple of days ago. I was like, well, what makes the biggest difference in your business, but also like just in general? And honestly, what I found time and time again is that your business can only grow to the degree to which you are growing, evolving, expanding. And so a lot of people eventually think, oh, well, I'm good now. So they expect their business to continue to grow, but it stops growing and plateauing, and they're like, oh, I can't break through those ceilings. Like, what is it? And usually it's energetic and mental ceilings because you have stopped growing, because your own imposter may come up, or your fear of failure, or your fear of success, or your own limiting beliefs. Oftentimes it is, more often than not, fear of success, not just fear of failure. But also it is lack of embodiment, or lack of a work-life balance, or like subconscious fears popping up. Like, we underestimate how much we play a role, because we are the foundation of our business. So again, our business can only grow and expand and scale to the degree to which we've grown ourselves. If we don't feel like we're even capable of holding more, of managing more, like if you're subconsciously scared of leading a bigger team or having more responsibility because you're having more clients and you have to manage more money and bigger amounts of money, like if you have a fear, if you feel like you can't even trust yourself that you're capable of that, you're never going to grow your business there. Like, never ever. Right? And so it is you versus you. It is never you versus your business, because if you keep growing, if you keep healing your own shit, if you keep releasing your own limitations, whether they're mental or emotional or energetic, then of course there's also the strategy piece, but we're not even talking about that. Like, I really mean the mental and the emotional energetic aspect. If you are contracting in yourself, in your life, if you're ignoring your own shit, chances are that your business is not going to grow. And I'm speaking from my own experience. I had a time where I kind of stopped growing, and I was refusing to look at some stuff, at my own shadow, my own fears, my own subconscious blockages. And I was surprised that my business was stagnating and plateauing. And in hindsight, it made so much sense, but in the moment I was like, I don't understand. I'm doing all the right things. Well, doing more doesn't equal more outcome of what you want. Like, doing more or working more hours doesn't equal more growth, because we're leading a business and scaling a business is not linear, it's exponential. And so it doesn't always, it's not always like, oh, more work equals more output or more outcome or more clients or more revenue, or whatever it is, right? Like, it's not like that. It's not linear at all. In fact, what I found is introducing feminine leadership principles and being the embodiment and being free from energetic and mental blockages, that is what exponentially grew my business, which has nothing to do with strategy, really. Sure, we got to refine, we got to adjust, we got to like have a strategy and follow a strategy that feels really good and authentic, but it's more so about you and the own inner work. And like, that's what a lot of people completely neglect. And it's funny too, because I have one of my business besties. She's running like a multi-million dollar company, and she keeps turning to me, even though my business is not a multi-million dollar business, but she knows I'm nailing the leadership aspect and the mindset aspect. So she comes to me to check in on Laura. I feel like I'm facing blockages. I feel like I'm stuck at this plateau, like I'm hitting ceilings, like I want to scale to 10 million a year, like what am I going to do? And it's like, it's not strategic advice that she needs, because she got the strategy on log, it works. It's more so the mindset and the identity piece, and that's usually where people fail to continue growing and scaling, is they're not they're hitting their own blockages and their own ceilings within themselves. And so that's what I see a lot. And this is why, for me, this has always been such a huge aspect of my work. In fact, that's mostly what I do. It's not even like, oh, I'm going to tell you how to like have the right strategy in place. It's like, no, I trust that most of my clients have that already, or I can give them what I know works for any type of business. However, that's not even all there is to it. In fact, strategy is maybe 20%, 30% maximum. 80 or 70% at least is you, your mindset, your embodiment, your energy, your creativity, your connection to yourself, your self leadership. It is that. And a lot of people overlook that. And they're just like, give me the answer to the right business strategy.
Wow.
Well. Right. So,
Okay,
yeah.
let's face your demons. Let's work on shadows. Let's build your mindset. I'm sure that's definitely not what people expect, but I find that that is really so meaningful in the work that we do. It's about discovering the things in ourselves, working on ourselves, improving and expanding our capacity in order to be able to hold those things that we want to create.
Totally.
Um, I've really enjoyed this conversation with you. I find so much value, and I encourage anybody to reach out to you and see how they can work with you if they feel that they need the support. I'll of course put all the links and everything in the show notes. I'll be able to connect with you there. But just as kind of like a last question that I always ask, I'll ask you, what are you curious about right now?
I love that. I've been actually asking myself this question like a week or two ago when I was speaking to one of my girlfriends from the States on the phone. Because we were like kind of dreaming up this year, right? Like the second half of the year, specifically after summer. And I was telling her, well, I'm so curious with what's next because I don't even know. I feel like since, and this is something we haven't even talked about today a lot at all, but like since uncoupling from my long term partner and through that, like going through this whole initiation, like I've just been like rediscovering myself in multiple different ways this year on every single level, like in my leadership, in my business, in my friendships, in my spirituality, in like how I'm relating to men, how I'm relating to money, how I'm relating to like my values, like so many things. I've been like really, I've been like, what else is coming now? Because I feel like I've lived a whole lifetime this year in a way. I don't know how else to describe it. And I'm curious what's next because I feel like I've evolved into this whole new version of myself, even just in the past couple of months, being single again and rediscovering who I've become through my relationship, which has been very beautiful and like very supportive of my healing and my personal expansion. And through that, I've obviously like changed and expanded my business quite a bit as well. And I'm just curious what is happening in the second half if I can change so much within 4 months. I was just like wondering with her, like what else is possible in the next 6 or 7 months now, like that are ahead. And I think I'm curious about like what this new season in my life is gonna look and feel like because I think we're always co-creating as like always, like it's always partly in our hands, but also then there's the magical aspect of letting the universe surprise us. And I'm curious about what the universe got in store for me now that I've evolved into this new version. I think this is a question we can always ask ourselves. It's like, what do we want to co-create? So we're like being intentional. It's not just like, oh, life is happening to us and we can't do anything about it. It's like, no, it's always a co-creation because as we said before, we're creating our own luck through putting ourselves out there and planting seeds and like, like being available for certain opportunities. And yeah, I'm just like very curious about the opportunities that will come up as I've healed certain parts of myself, as I've integrated certain learnings this year. And this is why I'm such a huge believer in intentional living and being very mindful and reflecting and introspecting, especially after an intense period of you maybe changing some values or gaining new perspectives or acquiring new knowledge or like getting clarity around how you want to pivot your business or start a business or whatever it is. Like integrate that and really look at, okay, so based on that and based on who I've become now, what feels aligned for me now in this new season that I'm entering, this new life chapter that is about to unfold in front of me. And for me, I'm just curious about that because I have a feeling I know, but I know nothing, right? And so yeah, I've just been like curious about that, I guess.
Beautiful. I
What
can't
else
wait
is possible? Like what else is there? Like what magic will the universe surprise me with next? Because some of my biggest manifestations have come to fruition, even just in the past couple of weeks and months. And I'm like, whoa, if that is happening, then what else? you know, what
to.
else is out there?
That's so beautiful. I can't wait to see. I hope we
Thanks,
get to
babe.
connect again soon. I mean, I feel like I could do another 10 of these with you. I've enjoyed and
Love
learned
that.
so much. And I hope and I know that the community here as well. I want to thank you for your time. It's been so
Thanks,
lovely.
babe. Yeah, it
And
was nice being here. Thank you for having me.
my pleasure.
Now, after this time to nurture your mind and your spirit, we invite you to take a moment to consider others. A kind wish might come to mind. Know that what we learn becomes more valuable when we apply it and share it with others. So share this episode on Instagram stories, tag Yandara and I, or share with a loved one so that more people can benefit from it. Our hope is that the search will lead you home to who you already are, to what was always there. We'll be back next week with more inspiration, honest conversation, and insight into the energetic world around us. Thank you for listening and watching.